This story all begins with an elderly woman named Irene. In her youth, Irene's life was almost perfect. She once had a warm family and 3 children whom she loved dearly, Sarah, Claudio, and Rita. But as time went by, her children's lives began to change. Each of them followed a different path with equally complex problems. Of the 3, only Rita was married, but unfortunately, her marriage didn't go as smoothly as she had imagined. Rita's relationship with her husband deteriorated. One day, after attending a community meeting, Rita decided to visit her doctor. At first, it seemed like a normal visit, but they ended up getting intimate. Rita knew what she was doing was wrong, but for some reason, she continued the relationship. Rita also had a daughter named Barbara, who was now growing up. But like most teenagers, Barbara preferred spending time with her friends to spending time with her family. Meanwhile, Rita's relationship with her husband worsened. Arguments began to occur frequently. One night, they even got into a fight again. It seemed their relationship was no longer on the right track. Meanwhile, the story shifts to a young man named Carlo. One day, Carlo was taking a leisurely walk with his pet dog. However, unexpectedly, the dog suddenly entered Irene's yard and immediately approached her female dog. Because the 2 dogs couldn't be separated, they were forced to wait until everything was over. From that rather awkward incident, Carlo finally got to know Irene. Coincidentally, Irene's children were visiting that day for a meal. Irene asked Carlo to stay and join them for dinner. Shortly after, Irene's children began to arrive. Rita arrived first with her husband and son, along with Claudio. Shortly after, Sarah arrived with her son, Marco. Upon arrival, something strange happened when Claudio met Carlo. It seemed they already knew each other. Everyone finally gathered at the same dining table, but what should have been a warm atmosphere felt incredibly awkward. The conversation didn't go smoothly. The strained relationship between them made the lunch especially awkward. While eating, Irene suddenly asked Claudio to find a partner and get married, but for some reason, Carlo suddenly became offended and decided to leave. At first, everyone was confused by Carlo's attitude, but soon a big secret was revealed. It turned out Claudio and Carlo weren't just acquaintances, they had an unusual relationship. That's why Carlo felt offended by Irene's words. Unfortunately, Irene and Sarah overheard Carlo and Claudio's conversation. Claudio then asked them to keep this a secret from his mother. However, the family's problems didn't stop there. It turned out that Sarah was also worried about her son. She hadn't seen Marco with any woman yet. Sarah feared that Marco would be like Claudio. However, Marco firmly rejected this assumption. He even asked his mother not to interfere in his private life. On the other hand, Carlo finally reunited with Claudio. After a brief disagreement, they reconciled and promised to stay together. Meanwhile, Rita's life became increasingly chaotic. She grew increasingly bored with her husband. She seemed to have lost all feelings for him. She even continued to see the doctor frequently and made out with him repeatedly. The family was in complete chaos, and everything seemed out of control. Until one day, Rita finally came to see her mother. She poured out all the anxieties and problems she had been keeping inside. From there, we began to realize one thing. No family is truly perfect. Everyone has their own problems. It all depends on how we deal with them. Everyone has secrets, everyone has wounds, and everyone must face their own problems. But life must go on. Ultimately, they all tried to resolve their problems in their own ways. Some made peace with the situation, some learned to accept reality, and still others finally understood the true meaning of family. That was the plot of the film The Best Day of My Life 2002. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you again in our next video.